All right, gang. We are now going to go over the new vocabulary from lesson 1.2a. We're going to be talking about segments and segment addition. Our goal for the day for this lesson is to find segment lengths by using segment addition and congruence. We have some vocabulary we're going to go over, and then ultimately that's what we're going to do. I'd like you to pause your video, get that organized in your notes, and then we will jump ahead to the vocabulary. All right, we're going to be talking about first coordinates and naming things on our line or our segment so that we understand what we're talking about. A coordinate is the number assigned to a point. And then to name it, that is the letter assigned to a point. Important to know, coordinates are numbers, names are letters. We talked about naming points in our earlier lesson. I have a diagram here that I want you to look at. I have a line on here. Notice that I have coordinate names, names of these points, A and B. Right here, those are the names of the points. And then we have the coordinates of the points. We have x1 and x2. In math, if you don't want to assign it a specific value right now, you can just call it point 1 and point 2, x1, x2. If you want to think of those as numbers, you can sure do that. We can call that number 3 and we can call that number 5. But those are what we call our coordinates of those points. All right. Let's jump down to this number line and this distance. On this number line, if I wanted to take and put a segment on here, let's say I put a point right here at -2, and let's call that A. And then I draw another point at 4, and we call that B. The distance is the space between those two. Remember, coordinate, name, the distance is the space between those. That's this guy right here. So if we're going to count that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My distance is 6. The distance is how far between, points, or we can think of it as the number of spaces. Now, when we have a number line, very easy to count the number of spaces. The problem can be, what if you don't have a number line? What if these numbers were, let's say, on this picture that we have here, let's say this number was 23, and this number up here was 97. How do you calculate how many spaces that is? Right here is our calculation. We take the two values and in between them, we minus. Notice that we have these two lines on the outside. Those lines are absolute value. The absolute value always makes them positive, so it doesn't really matter which order we subtract in. I can take the big one minus the small one and absolute value it, or I can take the small one minus the big one and absolute value it. In either case, I get the absolute value of 64, which is 64, or the absolute value of negative 64, which is still 64. That's how you calculate distance. You can count the spaces, or you can subtract the numbers and throw away the absolute value. Notice that we would say AB equals 64. Right up above here, there is no bar when we are talking about a length. That actually comes up quite often, so that would be something for sure that you want to pay attention to and know when we're talking about distance. All right, we're going to pause this guy, and I'm going to jump to the next page. All right, the last two segments that we're going to talk about is between and segment addition. Remember, segment addition was the one thing that we said we have to make sure that we know for this unit, so that's our end game, that's our goal right there. The first word, between, is really just somewhere in the middle. Now, a lot of times people think that between means that it has to be exactly in the middle. That is not necessarily the case. For example, is second hour in our school day between first hour and seventh hour? And the question is yes. Between means somewhere in the middle. If we have first hour and we have seventh hour, is second hour somewhere between there? Yeah, between. Then segment addition, that is just where we will be adding segments. It is exactly what it looks like. Now go back and look at this number line that we have set up of our school day. Notice we have seventh hour at the end of the day, first hour at the beginning of the day, second hour falls somewhere in the middle. Well, the whole day is made up of this first amount of time and this second amount of time. So when we want to do segment addition, all we're going to do is take one part of the line plus the other part of the line and equal it to the whole part. So if I look at this, if I call this A and this B and all of this equal to C, we can say that A plus B is equal to C. Part plus part equals whole. Segment addition, very important. Make sure that you got that. And that's one of those know this things. You got to make sure that you have that. We're going to pause the video. I'm going to jump ahead and do some practice questions in the next video. Join me if you think you need help with them. Otherwise, give them a try on your own.